exciting things.
All right.
How about we go watch round one?
That sounds cool and exciting.
Hello and welcome to round one. The workshop decks have finally entered the field. Bob Maher shows up with chalices and hangerbacks and spheres and thorns. Rodrigo is on Grixis Outcome. Sounds like paradoxical outcome shenanigans.
This is just a great classic matchup of lock pieces fighting against a combo deck, and as you can see here, Bob winning the die roll is pretty big.
Yep.
So he's going to be able to play 2 lock pieces this turn, both the Chalice of the Void and a Sphere.
He doesn't know what he's up against, but whatever. On the play against a blind deck, you just Chalice 0. Every deck has at least a couple of Moxes in it, so.
Man, Chalice of the Void is... I'm so glad that card is restricted.
Yeah,
that is such an awful Magic card.
It's annoying.
I've had 3 different opponents remind my opponent about his Chalice triggers at different points. So
Rodrigo's hand was not super well set up. He didn't know his matchup, obviously, so that Flusterstorm is dead. It is a blue card to pitch to Force Will or put back with a Brainstorm. That's basically all it is. And it's going to be hard to make his Academy very exciting. He's going to have to pay 2 mana for Divining Top.
Right.
To be able to pay 3 for a Time Vault, but down's going to come Sphere of Resistance.
This is quite likely to turn into a non-game because Rodrigo's finest draws are all completely bricked by Chalice of the Void. And that Academy in his hand, or whatever other land he fetches. So
maybe. I'll give you maybe, but see, there is a Mystical Tutor. Rodrigo could have a Hurkyl's... If Rodrigo has a Hurkyl's Recall in his deck...
He can cast it.
Yeah, well, 3-mana Mystical Tutor... I guess he's got to get some artifact down. He's 1 land away from playing a Divining Top right now. Oh, God, and there's a Sphere.
In Magical Christmas Land, he would have a Soul Ring, but he's so far from being able to cast Soul Ring at this point. He would need to draw a Soul Ring and a land to cast it. And
well, if he draws any land, he can play his Divining Top, and now the Academy counts as a land. It is super awkward that Academy taps for 0 here.
Yes. I'm glad that they balanced that card instead of making it broken.
They is Bob Maher in this situation?
So the new set, Ixalan, has... So the green analog of Tolarian Academy is Gaia's Cradle, and the downside to the original Gaia's Cradle is that if you don't have any creatures in play, it taps for 0 mana, and they've actually fixed it on the Pirate Treasure version of Gaia's Cradle, because you can tap for 1 green for each creature you control, or just tap for a green. So the backside of it is strictly better than a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, Bob actually had a really important draw there in Ancient Tomb. He was starting to get really pinched by his Sphere and his Thorn, right? He hasn't put a clock out because his mana is not in great shape, but Ancient Tomb should basically solve everything.
So now that Thorn's restricted, the workshop decks only get to enjoy 5 spheres. So Bob has drawn 60% of his spheres.
Lodestone Golem. They get 6.
I guess so. Then
he's drawn half. Plus the 1 Chalice.
Okay, so then he's drawn 4 out of 7. Oh, never mind. He's drawn 5 out of 7 of his spheres.
I tend to think of it as lock pieces where there's basically 7. That's how I think this deck plays now.
Okay, well, there's 5 of them.
Fair.
So Bob had a very powerful start, and by drawing Blightsteel, poor Rodrigo drew the worst possible thing that was not only a brick, but also took him off a prospective line that he might have had. Well, yeah. There's Dak Faden, and he's the greatest thief in the multiverse. And if he could actually arrive on the scene, then Rodrigo could have his very own Hangerback Walker. But at this point, Rodrigo is at effectively -1 mana, and Mr. Faden is a far distant dream for Rodrigo.
Yeah, I think the only question now is whether Rodrigo's actually going to get to cast a spell. I'm on no.
He's currently, yeah, he's at -1 mana right now.
Right. I mean, I don't put him on feeding Emerald into the Chalice, so I don't think he's going to get to cast a spell, but Bob's not exactly killing him quickly.
Right.
And the thing is, Bob's also slow rolling a Wasteland and a Ghost Quarter. He's been using them for the colorless mana that they also tap for. But if Rodrigo gets up to, say, 0 mana and threatens to be able to cast a 1 mana spell on the following turn, you'll see Wasteland and Ghost Quarter
spring into action if Rodrigo ever threatens having a non-negative amount of mana. So I guess Bob can still cast one of his creatures at 2. If you're Bob, I kind of like playing Revoker here, naming Soul Ring, because that's feasibly the only way I can imagine Bob possibly losing this game.
Cute. I think he's debating whether Hangerback is going to attack or tap.
Well, if he bumps Hangerback, he can't cast one of his creatures.
Right.
He has, so the spheres, the 3 spheres, they affect the creature's mana costs, but not the thorn. That's why thorn's restricted. It's like a one-sided sphere.
Yeah, the fact that these decks play 20+ creatures makes the thorn the far more effective card in the deck. All right, Hangerback does get in there. You sure it's Soul Ring with Phyrexian Revoker? Maybe he names a different card. Maybe Abandon Hope is always a fine choice.
So,
props to the chat for that one.
They took a bunch of cards off. Like, you can't name Camel anymore, unfortunately. They took off the cards that were never printed in Magic the Gathering Online, which is sad.
Sure.
I used to like naming those, but... All right, well, let's... I guess you could name Dark Confidant here if you really wanted.
I mean, Dak Faden is also reasonable. I don't know how Rodrigo gets up to Dak Faden mana, but I mean, that's usually the blind name I make. Oh, he goes with Soul Ring.
Well, Soul Ring, okay.
I think you guys are right. You and Bob.
Actual correct play, though, it's possible that Bob is so far ahead that it doesn't matter. All right, so now Rodrigo is at a very, very threatening 0 mana. He could cast that Mox if he wanted to throw it into the Chalice. Ah, man. Wrong Art Mishra's Workshop. There it is. So, if you're Bob here, do you Ghost Quarter? The reason to Ghost Quarter is that there's 2 reasons to. One is that you might just get the island, and the other is that you might learn more about the contents of Rodrigo's deck, which is to say how many basics he has.
Mm-hmm. Tempting.
Now, the downside is that Rodrigo could actually cast a 1-drop if he has another basic.
He can also, like, it wouldn't be crazy for Bob to waste one of the fetch lands and then Ghost Quarter whatever comes out of it.
Well, if he has another basic, Rodrigo could get that, right? And if he...
Yeah, but then the Ghost Quarter, he's going to have a 3rd basic?
I think... I don't know. I don't mind just playing walkie shooty machine and passing here.
Just keep tapping him for colorless.
I mean, at this point,
the fact that he's Revokered Soul Ring means what's the 1-mana spell that Rodrigo's going to crush you with?
Mana Vault, I guess. But
you
playing,
then get to kill his lands.
Right. By playing a Walking Ballista, Bob's going to be able to set up a huge amount of damage. Walking Ballista's fast. It basically can fling itself at your opponent whenever you like. So if you're Rodrigo, what would you like to draw?
I mean, it's just land, right?
Land, and then I guess you can play a Sensei's Divining Top after fetching the additional 3 basics in your deck. So if Bob plays this at 4, next turn he can attack for 8 and then shoot for 12. So I think I like playing Ballista as a 4/4 because that's lethal next turn.
He doesn't have the mana to make it a 4/4.
Oh no, you're right. I forgot about the spheres.
There's 2 X's. And or 3 spheres.
Yeah, way too many of those X's and or spheres. Well, there's a poorly timed Force of Will that Rodrigo actually could have used last turn.
Yeah, and Rodrigo scoops him up. Definitely can't come back from there. I know you said that was going to be a non-game when you looked at the opening draws. I really felt like Rodrigo was drawing live. Bob had to draw additional spheres to keep Mystical for a Hercules out of play, and it does look like there's a Hercules in his list.
Wow, check out wastes. There's some innovation. A wastes in Bob's sideboard.
Oh, cute.
So I guess the idea there is that if someone ghost quarters him, he can he can assemble waste. Now, Rodrigo sided up Jace. It looks like he's not bringing in Croson Grip, which is interesting.
Huh. Why would you have Croson Grip and not bring it in?
I'm not entirely sure, and it looks like he's not deigning to bring it in. Well, there's lots of Hercules. So, Rodrigo's deck, basically, Workshops is much better game 1 than in subsequent games because all of this hatred flows in, and now Rodrigo...
And you get to take out dead cards, right? Between Mental Misstep and Flusterstorm, there's 1 Mental Misstep in the entire deck, and Rodrigo looks like he only had 2 missteps. 2 misstep, 3 fluster, something like that. But whatever, it's still 5 cards that are just straight dead.
Yeah, exactly.
They turn into Hercules Recalls.
Hercules, and is that a Shatter effect? Ancient Grudge?
Yeah, there's an Ancient Grudge. There's a couple of Braids.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Rodrigo's deck is basically a Paradoxical Outcome deck, but his kill is Vault Key or Blightsteel. There's no Tendrils in there. So his outcome is a value card, right?
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean,
he's literally killing with Blightsteel Colossus.
Well, Blightsteel gets the job done, especially you have all the turns you've ever wanted.
Right, but I mean, if there's if his Blightsteel gets exiled somehow, he can't win. Am I missing something?
I think then his win is to take infinite turns and keep decking the opponent and hope that.
Oh, you can deck them with deck. Sure. You deck them with deck.
Yeah. Deck them with deck.
Like, there had to be some back. I didn't even see a Snapcaster. I
didn't either. I like Snapcaster a lot in this deck because it not only does it let you rebuy Paradoxical Outcome, but the Paradoxical Outcome rebuys the Snapcaster Mage. It's this whole circle of life. Now, here, it looks like Rodrigo's opening hand is way more powerful. In fact, if he hits a Mox, he can assemble Tinker on turn 1 and just put this game away right away.
Right. It doesn't have any business right now except the Demonic Tutor.
Well, right. But 1 Mox of any kind, and this is over.
You don't think Bob can handle turn 1 Blightsteel?
Not with that hand.
Now, Phyrexian Metamorph is usually the answer the Shops deck has.
Wow,
Ancestral.
Ancestral.
How about we
Yeah.
just draw Ancestral Recall off the top one?
That seems like a pretty good way to approach things. So it's also possible, by the way, that Rodrigo could have been in a much better spot last game had he gone first.
Yeah. No black mana in this draw, by the way. The Black Lotus is the only source of black mana for the DT, so he does have to tap the land for blue.
One of my... oh, man. He actually does get the turn 1 Tinker.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. He has turn 1 Tinker for Blightsteel if he wants it. Unless he thinks he can DT for something better. I don't think outcome's better than... Oh, he's seen Bob's hand. It's just got to just be Tinker.
So this is just over. So, I know that they don't ban cards for power in Vintage, but if I were to ban any one card, it would be Chalice. In addition to making games miserable and having a lot of really weird remembering your trigger things in real life, it makes winning the die roll way too important. So Rodrigo couldn't cast his Emerald last game on account of Chalice, and that really made a huge difference in the game. And so Rodrigo's unfortunate luck of not going first was significantly amplified by Chalice. And I see people who have actually advocated in Vintage for unrestricting Chalice, and I'd rather just unrestrict like Ancestral Recall and be done with it.
Demonic Tutor, 4 Tinker. Yep. Like you said, all he needed off that Cataxian Probe was a Mox or an Ancestral into functionally 3 Moxes.
Yeah, that seems slightly better. So it looks like all of Rodrigo's unfortunate luck last game is that's being handled now. So I'm pretty sure. What do you sack here? I think I like sacking the Emerald, which is what he does.
Yep, Emerald for sure.
And there's the big guy himself, giant monster full of poison. And as I guess Bob can survive a turn if he really wants, but
can he even get? Yeah, he can get a 2-power Ravager into play, I guess.
Argon Ravager is a fantastic Magic card. It's a great card. It's an honorary ATOG. But
Phyrexian Metamorph is what he has to draw. He has to copy Blightsteel Colossus and then trade them off. That is his out. That is basically, I mean, sometimes Tango Wire can buy you time from the shop's perspective against an in-play Colossus, but it's usually Metamorph or bust.
But this one's deterministic. Rodrigo is going to Ancient Grudge, whatever blockers Bob's assembled. And
well, if it was a Metamorph, copying an indestructible Blightsteel.
You're right.
I've been on the Blightsteel side of that a couple of times, and always like, yes, I got my Tinker Blightsteel against the shop's deck, and they're like, no, seriously.
and then everyone has one.
Right, and you kind of have to attack in and trade them, because if they Tango Wire you, they get to kill you. You don't really want to be in a staring contest. It's all very frustrating.
Right, better that no one have a Blightsteel than everyone have a Blightsteel, as they say.
Yours does have the advantage of shuffling back into your deck.
Does theirs not? Because I guess it stops being that one that hits
the under a Blightsteel if they draw it, is my
point. Okay.
2 blockers means
that it's a good thing this card has flashback. Yeah.
Interesting. He's not going to bother.
Well, you can do it after blocks. It has trample.
Sure. Fair point.
Shatter one side and shatter the other side, and
I was wondering if he wants to not show him Ancient Grudge.
Well, I mean,
Bob has to eat something before it's even required. I would totally reveal the fact that I'm sideboarding Ancient Grudge to make sure he doesn't top deck a Metamorph.
I don't think it's a huge reveal that Rodrigo has artifact removal after sideboarding against his workshop deck. So,
right. All right. 1 game apiece. Looks like we're headed to game 3.
These have both been pretty lopsided games. It seems like going first is good.
Fair.
I'm so excited about that basic waste in Bob's sideboard. That's just really cool. And
does he even have Metamorphs? He doesn't, does he?
Oh, wow.
Nope.
Yeah, he's full hold to that, isn't he?
Yep. He
Rodrigo
cannot
has
beat
no thief, which is such a huge card.
Notion Thief.
So
Yeah.
it looks like he has one grip main and one grip just not sideboarded in.
Oh, sure.
Which,
Bob looking at Grafdigger's Cage. That is the one thing he can do to beat Tinker.
yeah.
It's pretty
Graphic
awkward.
does stop. It's really awkward because it does absolutely nothing other than stop two cards in Rodrigo's deck.
They are his two best cards. Yawgmoth's Will
Yeah,
being the
that's true.
other.
That's true. Was he bringing in? Oh, he is. All right, here it is. He's bringing in just a Miser's Cage.
Yeah, I always find myself mostly okay with my opponent playing a Grafdigger's Cage.
It's this card that's not a threat and it's barely a lock piece, so I'm never unhappy when I play against it.
And Bob changes his mind. Looks like it went out at the last minute.
I think that makes sense. And Bob's on the play. If he's advanced his board state enough, it won't matter. You see that Bob is playing with Precursor, and I think that card is just it's 9 power for 5 mana. That's a lot of value.
Much everybody plays with that card now, right? The restriction of Thorn, unless you're doing some crazy, either you're going down the stacks route or you're going down the combo route. The stock Ravager Shops deck that still is having plenty of success on Magic Online has just replaced 3 copies of Thorn of Amethyst with Precursor columns.
Wow, so Rodrigo's hand is basically the dream against Bob's deck.
Jeez.
It's just block your first move, and then here's my friend Blightsteel again. Do you remember me? And
Rodrigo
Bob, I think you keep that, but it's kind of an anemic hand. And
he already mulliganed once.
Yeah, right.
Thorn.
I don't think you go to 5, so then Rodrigo just forces the Thorn, and this game's over.
Yep. Yeah. And it looks like Rodrigo is going to break serve.
Yeah. Well, one of the really nice things about the blue decks is that they have Force of Will, and Force of Will essentially means that you get to go first. It's very hard for the Workshop deck to have more than one thing to do in the first turn, again, in part because Chalice got restricted.
So Bob still has an out, by the way. Rodrigo's probably pitching his Brainstorm. So if Rodrigo draws the Blightsteel, then Bob's fine. And he pitched the Paradoxical Outcome for exactly this reason. Rodrigo saw the same thing I saw. He draws Blightsteel.
Kind of very smart. Wow. So
he should be fine now.
Yeah. Well, unless something absurd happens, it looks like Rodrigo is going to be the victor here. He can even get rid of the Mana Crypt so he doesn't take damage. And if you're Bob, are you frustrated that you didn't bring in that Miser's Cage?
Well, what card was he taking out for it, right? I'm only frustrated if I was taking out a Revoker or a Crucible, which I don't think he was taking out. Yeah, Bob's I guess. I mean, he can put 2 power in front of it. He
can survive for a turn, but I'm pretty sure that without Metamorph, this is deterministic now.
I agree, and so does Bob. So Rodrigo Togores takes our first match, moves up to 2-2 with a kind of a paradoxical outcome. Like, I'm Grixis. I'm not a Storm combo deck. I just want the value, and I'll figure out some way to win. Either Blightsteel or kill you with a Planeswalker.
Rodrigo has, Tinker, Blightsteel, and a few other cards wrapped around that.
Yep.
And it turns out that Workshops has always struggled with just slipping through a powerful undercosted spell that wins the game by itself. In the olden days, you'd win with Dragon. And, Well,
Blightsteel is really sketchy against the blue decks that are in Vintage nowadays, right? It gets stolen by Dak Faden. The Mentorish decks can Swords to Plowshare it. Jace can bounce it, right? That Blightsteel Colossus is not great, except Tinker for Blightsteel is the easiest way to beat a Shops deck. Shops is definitely one of the tier 1 decks. You can make a case that it's the best deck in Vintage, like it has been for years. And Blightsteel, that's where it shines. That's where you want it.
It's strong, but it's very linear, and this giant poisonous, infectious robot just arrives and kicks it to death right away. And it's kind of I like the flavor behind it, right? Because you get this wizard in a workshop there trying to assemble all these little contraptions to make spells harder to cast, and then this giant robot just comes along anyways and kicks the factory.
The whole building.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. I don't know, that's fun. Right.
Well, I'm going to find out what else you like, because we're about to play. Bob Maher does have his first loss now, 3-1 on the season. Reed Duke is now the last undefeated man standing in the Vintage Super League this season, but so got 5 more matches to see how the rest of the standings play out. You're in pretty good shape coming in. You have to feel pretty good about your 2-1.
If I'm 2-1. If you beat me, I'll be down to being Grey Ogre. Nothing wrong with 1-2s. Nothing wrong with 1-2s either. So,
all right. Stay tuned, guys. We will have more Vintage right after this break.
Need the latest Magic the Gathering singles for constructed, casual cards for the kitchen table, or sealed product for a draft night with your friends? CoolStuffInc.com has what you're looking for. With an extensive selection of singles, sealed, and supplies, free shipping on orders of $100 or more, a 25% buy list bonus, and our ever-popular customer rewards program, CoolStuffInc.com is a one-stop shop for all your Magic the Gathering needs.
Ixalan is available in stores. Brave the unknown by exploring the lush jungles of Ixalan. Discover a world filled with mighty dinosaurs, treasure-hunting pirates, graceful merfolk, and sinister vampires. Visit Ixalan.com to find out more.